All right. Anyway, thank you so much for being with us here tonight. I have the unique honor of having two fantastic people speaking with us tonight on something that we hear a lot about, and sometimes I just don't understand what the big deal is when it comes to innovation. And here we are with Steve and Àlex, and I wanted to see if you guys can please at least give a little bit of background on yourselves to discuss so they can understand why you have the ability to speak on innovation and the connection between companies and startups. Àlex, can you start?
Can I start? Okay. I don't know if I start from the current situation to the background. Maybe it's better. Okay, I'm the head of innovation at Vueling. It's a low-cost airline. Okay, and we are doing a lot of things. I will explain later. Before, I was trying to create a startup with a partner. These things that happened, all of you now, okay. And before, I was in another startup in the world of the hotels, with doing a program, a loyalty program for the hotel industry. Before, I was in another startup related to gambling. Okay, but we are not in the gambling. We are not only proposing the best bets for the games. And before I went in another startup, I usually work in industries, in big industries. But when the crisis in the 2007, I started to work with several startups. Another one that we have as an e-commerce. And that was sold to Didacli, on one of the people, the names, one of the names of
Certainly.
In the industry. Before I was in iOS, I don't know if,
yeah.
Okay, it's something like a operative system in a browser. It was a very, very clever idea, but in the end, the things that happened in the startup world didn't. We were not aligned with the market. Okay, it's something that that it happened usually.
Okay. And
before, I was working in the automotive industry for 8 years, and before in a German company, and before in the alimentary industry for 12 years in La Piara, and this was my start in the job.
Yes, a bit of a background both in corporate as well as in startups.
Yes.
Successes and some failures along the way.
In the both parts.
Steve, I've known you for a long time. It's a huge pleasure. If you guys don't know, Steve has been my mentor for many years. Share with the people a little bit more about yourself and why you're here.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here with you all. I'm much older than Àlex, so I'm going to spare you my longevity. I was around before computers really got any traction in public hands. So I've lived through a constant series of changes through my generation's very blessed in that sense. We're very used to dealing with change, and innovation is obviously driving a lot of that change as we've seen Moore's Law kick in and all those things. So lived through constant transformations in large corporations like Fujitsu, Orange, these kind of guys, but probably 35 years in the corporate, typically in global roles. I've been across 50 different countries, working at one stage or another, and then about 10 years in startups and scale-ups. So quite a good balance, I think, all technology driven. So it gives us a good insight, I think, in how not to do things and how to do things.
Well, one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that neither of you have had the title of like an innovation manager. You're not necessarily specifically in charge of innovation. So why do you think that you can speak on this subject?
I just told you.
So you're responsible at a higher level.
Yeah, I mean, I ran Colt here for 6 years, for instance. We had 1,100 people. You're trying to cut costs. You're continually trying to find new ways, because innovation isn't just technology. It's a new way to solve a problem. In whatever form that might come. It always astounds me, the things like simple things. It doesn't have to be technical either. Innovation is all around us. So the one that astounds me is suitcases. It wasn't until the 60s that someone thought to put 2 wheels on a suitcase. It's to make our life easier. But it took another 10 years before someone thought, why don't we put 4 wheels on one? So innovation is staring us in the face, and we've just got to redefine what we're looking at and how we're looking at problems, essentially. And there's the key, I think, to unlock innovation.
I agree totally, because the innovation exists before the technology. And then, of course, that we need to think the technology is a tool that help us to create the innovation, but we can do innovation in fields that there is no implemented the technology yet, and we can do it. Okay?
So what kind of examples do you have at Vueling then?
About the innovation without technology?
Yes.
Yeah, basically, when we think about a new kind of ancillary or product that we can offer to the customers. For example, there is a process of innovation that the technology is not present.
Okay.
It's something that sometimes yes, there is technology, but sometimes it's just a new product without technology.
And is there a structured approach to learning how startups and agile companies are doing things so that you can incorporate them into a larger, more established organization?
Yes. For example, in Vueling, I always speak told that we are a young airline born in this century. Then we start with the technology, and we have the innovation in our DNA. And not only the innovation lab is who is in charge of the innovation. We have the business teams, the product teams in the technology area, and in the middle of the corporation there is the transformation team. That is a specific area and is not under technology. Okay, and then is doing has the wings of the both.
Nice metaphor.
Yes. Then what we are doing is thinking about a startup. For example, when we have more than 40 products, each product has a product owner. We are trying to implement Agile, not the pure Agile on Scrum, and now we are moving for a safe, because we have deadlines and we have a budget and we have a number of hours per team. You can apply pure Agile as if your own startup, but when you have unions and other things, you cannot say, okay, we shall stop, we shall end this feature now, and if we need to finish at the 11 of night, you should stay here. In the corporates, you cannot do it. Then you need to mix the spirit of Agile with the regulatory part.
Okay. And Steve, I met you when you were at Colt. You're leading Colt here in Spain. You switched from Colt to another organization, a little bit more startup-y feel. Is there anything that you learned that in your, I guess, experience that you can apply from a younger company or a smaller company?
I think when you're in an alternative, a challenger telco, what you don't want to do is offer your customers risk. So the last thing you want to do is have a reputation for innovation, because you've got to be secure and solid. Whereas in world sensing, where we more than doubled the turnover in a few years, and went really global to over 70 countries, I think that's all about risk. That's about pushing your technology to a very conservative sector as well, like construction, mining, these places where safety is such a big issue. So you've got this tension between innovation, delivering products to get through their processes, and it's a couple of years cycle.
All right, with the vast experience that you have, can you speak about some of the mistakes, perhaps, at a more generic level, not necessarily your experience, that you think is interesting regarding innovation?
Yeah, I think a couple of obvious examples. Sony, they had a music division, they had the Walkman, they had a gadgets, electronics division. They should have eaten Apple alive. Apple should never have got to where they got to, and it's their storming product still today, the iPhone. So what you had in corporate is you've got these divisions, and they're called divisions for a reason, I guess, fighting each other and consuming a lot of energy and a lot of resources. They're not thinking about the greater good, and I think that's where Steve Jobs and the guys they use technology to actually create massive market share. The other one, the obvious one, is Kodak, where they invented in their internal development areas the digital camera and said, oh, God, that's going to kill our market. We won't surface that. And of course, they virtually disappeared, yeah, as a result, yeah. So you've got to steal the moment
when you have it. Okay. And anything that you'd like to share specifically regarding maybe any errors or things that you've seen?
I can share two kinds of failures. Yes. For example, in the corporates, or for example, in not only in Vueling, in all the corporates, usually you censor. You make a censorship on your ideas because you are maybe it's not possible to execute, or you put a lot of things before to be clear. Okay. And when the pandemic, we realized that we failed doing this kind of reservation, be reserved about the ideas. And then we proposed to avoid all the limits for the innovation lab. That is, because before the pandemic, we have was a different thing. But when we restart the innovation lab after the pandemic in September 2021, we claims today, okay, we restart it, but there is no limits. We can do whatever. Okay, we need to put in a balance about the budget, but we'll have not limits about what we are investigating and what we are doing. This is because in Vueling we have the innovation lab has a very technological approach, because the other company is doing the innovation for the commercial, the innovation for the operations, and the innovation for the business support. Okay? And we can do these kind of things. And in the part of the startups is usually you are you think that you are the cleverest person of the world, that you know what the people need. Okay, you has the sentence of Henry Ford in your wall that if I try to listen my customers, they ask for fastest horses.
Right.
Okay, and you and this is always fail.
Okay.
Maybe sometimes works for Henry Ford, for example, but usually it fails because you should put in a balance the commentaries of your customer, because when you think that you know the holy truth, okay, and in reality is a lie, eh? it never happened, but you think it, and then when a customer is not a usual customer, is not in the mass, is a exceptional customer, usually has the same feeling that you have about the market, and then you only trust in this kind of customers,
right?
And then you fail again, because you need to listen the customers, but the media customers in the medium of the market.
You've mentioned balance a couple of times now, and finding product market fit is the magic. And what I've seen a number of times is young companies think that they have figured out the product market fit, and they're actually quite far from it, forcing them to pivot pretty strong. Steve, do you have any views on how you balance the need for a large established organization, yet wanting to fuel innovation and change and new ideas?
I think you've just got to stay very close to the users, the stakeholders that are going to actually use this, and keep testing. And it's very often we start off with projects that go in a completely different direction to that which we expect, particularly in startups, I've found. And it's not uncommon. You just got to have the confidence and the funding, but fail fast and get the hell out of where you were and move on to something else and take the learnings and go from there.
Well, you mentioned fail fast. What do you mean by that?
You've got to be brave and experiment, push as hard as you can to a point of completion, a stage in your project, test again. Is it scalable? I've seen some products that have looked great as a prototype but can never be scaled. They're just too complex to scale. So you've got to keep testing all the way and be prepared. And it's best to define the rules of engagement before you get to that point where you actually say, no, it doesn't meet the criteria that we were applying for success. And maybe you can innovate around that whatever comes out of that. But the Post-its we all used was an accident. The glue, they were trying to make a different kind of glue.
At 3M?
At 3M, and one of the scientists who was doing some work, he just found this glue and he started using it. And then they suddenly realized that they've got something that's got a very wide application. Yeah.
So I think you were talking about the sunk cost fallacy, because I've done it a few times where I'm starting something and I get results, they're positive, but they're not positive enough. But holding back or not continuing to invest is a tough decision. Have you ever been in a situation? When do you decide, okay, we've had enough, this isn't good enough, we cut it?
I think that when you realize this soon is the best option, but you need to be sure that this is the moment, because sometimes all the inputs are okay. You should close the business, but what you need is to wait one season to change, because the market changes, and then when you close the business and then another has the success in the same in the same field, you are very, very, very angry. Yeah.
It happens, though. It happens. I think the other thing is you've got to manage your cash flow. That's really the barometer. When are you going to create risk for your reputation, the brand's reputation, all those things? So really manage your cash flow and your outlooks, and don't lie to yourself.
I always think in the Apple released the Newton, I think at the end of 80s or beginning of 19s. Newton was like a tablet, a small tablet, okay, and fails because was very, very expensive, and the battery was not enough hours, and several things. But the idea was very well. It was the good idea, and then Palm success with the same idea, cheaper and with more battery. Then you need to know when to release the product.
Yeah, we see it all the time. Actually, one of the speakers at Startup Grind is Michael Eckhart. Talks about the valley of death and trying to make sure that you can cross that chasm. And sometimes it's not even the company itself; it's actually where the industry is at the time. And if you're too early, even the best product isn't going to make it. And if you're too late, well, you've missed the early mover advantage.
The thing you can do is actually put some patents in.
You put in what?
Patents.
Patents?
Patents.
Okay.
Just that piece of water between us, Victor. To protect your IP. Now, the issue with that is you can't defend them, but you can be a real nuisance. And yeah, I've seen many people get payouts even though they were cast to one side, but they'll just go on the pile of Apple's desk or Microsoft's desk, their general counsel, and you'll get in queue. But it gives you some way to get some leverage out of the value you've created.
Okay. And in terms of the work that you're doing now, can you share a little bit about what you're doing and how innovative this is?
Well, I'm doing a few things. I'm working with a company called Connects Hub. In fact, Mark Trowbridge should be here somewhere, yes, who provide this amazing service that allows you to be anywhere or perceived to be anywhere. And you can have multiple numbers on your phone. We've got some customers there that have thousands of numbers on their phone, land and mobile numbers from all over the world. So you can actually amplify your presence without all the overheads of bricks and mortar and infrastructure and so on. So it's a really clever piece of technology. I'm currently chief operating, so I'm a non-exec on a few companies, but chief operating officer at a company called Ocean Information Services Limited. The ocean is, we know less about the ocean than we do about space. And we're monitoring all sorts of different measures that go on in the sea. It's subsea IoT, so it's a fascinating subject. I've just been there a couple of months. We've got a project out in Puerto Rico that starts this weekend for the Ocean Foundation to help them manage the mangroves and man-made mangroves, which are an amazing way for us to combat the climate change and all the carbon issues. So really bleeding edge technology, But we also, with that, we also monitor fatigue on cables, which has a defense implication in the world that we live today. So there are all sorts of things going on, but it's been going for just less than 2 years. So, but great fun and really exciting to be part of this kind of sector.
Okay. Àlex, anything you want to share as head of innovation
Yes.
at Vueling that we can
Yes.
learn a little about?
In the Innovation Lab, we are working now in 4 research groups. Okay, we create our framework, of innovation framework. Then we start. The TIAF is the name of the innovation framework. The TIAF is something. It's like a POC that no more than 3 months, and it's mandatory to be executable or tangible. Okay. Then we have 4 research groups, and we are working around this. One of them is Quantum, the Quantum research group. We are developing our Quanting is the the quantum framework for Vueling, and in the velocity that we are running now, at the beginning of 2024, the data science will use it in pipelines. We can use it using pipelines that part of the pipeline is executed in quantum, another in classical. Then we are working in it's a project that we call it JEDI, is generative development using artificial intelligence. It's because we have a lot of problems to hire developers. Then
You have problems hiring developers here.
here, yeah. And then what we are trying is to create augmented developers. Okay, that the same one, maybe the future teams, instead to be about 5 or 6 persons, with 2 will be enough. Okay, the idea that we have is the artificial intelligence is not for replacement; it's for augmentation. Then what we will do is to create more products. We will not do fail-offs, and at least in the tech area,
Okay.
because we have a lot of pending things to do. I always say that the companies that are doing layoffs because the artificial intelligence is because they have no idea about what to do in the future. Because if you have a big list of to-do tasks, you will use your people in the company with the augmentation of the artificial intelligence to finish the task list. Okay, and this is our approach with artificial intelligence. It's for augmentation, it's not for replacement. Okay, and another thing that we are working, okay, is metaverse. We have the metaverse in the far horizon, it's in the beyond horizon, more than 12 years. What we are knowing as the metaverse, we call it protoverse, and we want to bring to the metaverse new products, not only use as a marketing platform, is to bring new products. For example, the ability to flight between metaverse, bringing your assets and your avatars. For example, in the future there will be a lot of metaverses, not only one. And if you have your WhatsApp metaverse and you will meet with the Telegram metaverse, it should be possible using your WhatsApp, but the party is in the Telegram metaverse. Okay? This is one of our ideas to do. And the last one is we're playing, because in the Innovation Lab we are playing with method, but we are playing with robots, and we are creating an architecture that the brain of the robot is not in the robot. We have an edge layer and a cloud layer, and then the intelligence is shared between these 2 layers. And in the robot there is only the intelligence to avoid to crash against the walls. And then we can trigger events for the company.
Okay.
We are trying this only in our office. Again, the problem to bring this to the airport is that we need years about regulatories and this kind of things. And then we want to try this technology using.
All right, I have a question for both of you. I'm currently advising a company that's raising money. Actually, they're trying to sell themselves. And they are one of the first companies I've seen that collect a massive amount of data on metrics on corporate innovation. So my question is, how do you know how you compare yourself against the industry when you're looking at innovation, whether it's at the corporate level or at the business unit level. How do you gather data effectively so that you know that you're doing well in your own company versus perhaps the industry? Do you have any metrics on that?
Yeah, revenue.
You come back to EBITDA.
Well, not necessarily EBITDA, but you start with revenue and you build from there. I mean, it's got to be hard and fast because there's so much blah blah around this stuff. And millions get wasted on it. So you've got to be really focused, I think, really focused. And be honest with yourself, and that's not easy, because as you say, you could be on the cusp of greatness, but fall just short. It's not your day.
Because sometimes I remember when I was younger, we used to call it discovery. So you'd pay these really smart people to do all kinds of tinkering and then take metrics, but a lot of these metrics didn't quite exist, or they weren't being kept. So it was kind of hard to, you got to cut it off at some point when it's not making the cut, but how do you decide that?
And you listen to your customers, of course. I mean, you've got to keep the pulse. And I love what Airbnb did, where they just piloted around 300 customers, and they just got proof of concept before they really launched.
Okay.
And the rest is history.
And how do you guys collect metrics?
Yes, of course. Yeah, we have a specific department for this. It's the data department. We are very original. And the data department has 150 people working on it. And for this, for us, is a strategic department. It's for the reason that we are working together with them about the use of quantum to be sure that we can execute things that today we cannot execute, because the time window is not enough. We have processes that the calculation, the time that we need for the calculation is more than the time that we need to execute. And then it's for the reason that we are experimenting with quantum. And we have several metrics, and we are not slaves of the metrics, okay? But it's information that is used by the company in all the levels.
Okay.
This is at the essence, I think, of the topic in a sense, because with the large companies, there are budgets, there are resources, but then you get into bureaucracy by the nature of the scale of it. So this balance, so you'll often see companies that will invest in multiple layers of startups to try and get some inspiration, some spark that might ignite. And you know the story, they'll invest in 100 companies. If one of them starts to do well, that covers the cost of all the rest of them. And whereas if you're small, you're very agile, very, very versatile, but you don't have the resources. So there's these incubators, they perfectly fit their purpose in that sense, because you get a moderation of both.
We are working with startups about to handle the data. For example, in the last TIS in Sevilla, we won a contest working with a startup to handle the network planning. Okay, but honestly, in the corporates, it's difficult to share the data with other companies.
Yeah, sure.
Even you sign the NDAs and all the papers, but we are doing it, but it's not open. Okay.
I think it's very difficult for the larger corporations. The scale does, eventually the law of numbers says they're going to get some results, but I think a key thing is to have really good sponsorship at the top, who's got budgets, who believes in what you're trying to pursue. They'll defend you to give you the space, the team that gives the space. But as soon as I hear hundreds of people are in an organisation, I'm starting, whoa, yeah. Yeah.
All right, I think we need to start wrapping it up. I was hoping to give you guys the last word on what are the big mistakes that you see happening, and then I think we'll pass on to the next group.
After you,
Àlex, what are the biggest mistakes right now in corporate innovation?
In corporate innovation, the biggest mistake was not bet in a technology when it was necessary. Okay? For example, about the quantum, the proposal was in 2019, and we didn't start until 2022, beginning of the 2022. And we have 2 years
to make
later.
I think the loss of focus. So what happens is you start an idea comes out, it gets some sort of level of approval, so the clock is already ticking, but then it becomes a political football, and I think so much resources get wasted because we lose sense of purpose about the mission that really sparked the interest. It gets lost in the noise of all the political nonsense and funding arguments and all that sort of stuff, and it just ends up going nowhere really. All the air comes out of it, which is something really you have to be really focused, very focused, and keep your scope very narrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it for today.
Thank you, Victor.
Thank you so much. You can get a little hand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Àlex.
Thank you. All right.